Hello. The Science Gallery Network consists of leading universities united around a singular mission to ignite creativity and discovery where science and art collide, according to their website. The 9 galleries of the Science Gallery Network are committed to bringing science, art, technology, and design together to deliver world-class educational and cultural experiences for young people. The network has 9 members across 4 continents: Dublin, London, Melbourne, Bangalore, Venice, Detroit, Rotterdam, not yet Amsterdam, Atlanta, and Berlin. We will put all the relevant links about the Science Gallery Network below, and one of these days we will learn more about the science galleries, especially in their connection with higher education. But today we focus our attention in one particular science gallery, the one in Bangalore, India, and a very special and brilliant online exhibition called Contagion. And to talk to us about Contagion, we're here with Jahnavi, Phalkey, the director of the Science Gallery Bengaluru, and Kamak, program manager of the Science Gallery Bangalore. Welcome to the UMAC YouTube channel.
Thank you, Marta.
Thank you. Thank you for your time too. Before we dive into Contagion, so to speak, we would like to know more about you. So maybe I start with Jahnavi. Tell us a little bit about your life, how you came to be where you are and doing what you do so brilliantly. Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you, Marta. This is a wonderful opportunity to share with our colleagues what it is we are trying to do in Bangalore. So I'm a historian of science by training. I've spent more than 2 decades now, looking at largely sort of history of science in the long 20th century, so to speak. The histories that I've written, serendipitously have been about objects. So when I did my first work, I got totally carried away with cyclotrons. And then later I started getting carried away by aircraft. More recently, I've also started getting carried away a bit by numbers, but that's very recent and let's see how far that goes. But objects have been very important to my history writing. And in fact, I ended up making a film about one of my research projects instead of writing a paper because I felt too few people would read it. And what the history had to show us was the most important part of that history was the people. And so I felt film probably was a much better form to bring it to life. Yeah. I'm overwhelmed by the kind of response. I thought 2 people will watch it, but I see that many people actually do find it interesting. Also because it's a science story or a history of science told as if people matter in a way, right? Like not the big men, but it's actually what everyday science looks like.
Or an abstract thing, an abstract thing.
Precisely.
Exactly.
And I mean, you know all about it. You've been working with objects all your life, I've found objects through text. And then I found them in real life and they feed back into how I write about them. So little things about them matter, what's stuck on them, how they're held together, how they work, how they look, what they are called. So like my cyclotron in the film is called a buffalo by the people who work with it.
Exactly. Because it's amazing how objects, more than, documents, make these connections with people salient, much more vivid, right? Much more.
Exactly.
And so, you can approach them through so many angles. And of course, the scholar angle for history of science, but also storytelling for normal people, and of all ages and interests and backgrounds and so on. So they're amazing objects, right?
True. Because they bring together, as you very rightly said, the people and their aspirations and why they wanted to build it or, work with it. It brings the institutional aspect because, research agendas, budgets, politics.
And,
and research grants as well, right? Because grants are brought in order to use the equipment. And so it's a good way I found to tie things together. And especially since I actually, so while as I said, my discovery of objects was through text. Once I discovered them, I realized that, I actually like them in themselves as well, while they allow me to tell very interesting histories of science. So that was kind of my world, so to speak, until one fine day, I got a call and would you like to consider working with Science Gallery, with the network in Bangalore, to establish the gallery in Bangalore? And it was a difficult decision. It was because, I have seen myself as an academic all my life. That was my ambition, as I used to say when I was young and, not so,
not so young. Not so young.
I used to say I have to retire as a professor, otherwise I would have failed, So that was that's where I started out from in my early teens. And so to give up a tenured academic position to do something adventurous, and that too in India where things...
And from zero practically. It's amazing because you're a founding director. I forgot to say that. There was nothing, and you started it. Well, this was, of course, the context of the network, but...
Of course. The network and the existing sort of successful model of bringing science and art together. So that was, so I in the end, I took it up and I moved to Bangalore, and, it's been an interesting journey. It's been an interesting journey because exactly...
When was that you moved? When was
so I started properly in my position in January 2018.
2018.
So about 3.5 years ago now. Mm-hmm. And it's been, a journey of learning everything from architecture drawings to construction tenders, to government audits, to programming, to recruitment, mentoring, all of those things, which as an academic, I didn't really have to worry about.
Yeah, it's quite...
to the same extent, right?
It's quite different, isn't it? And you lose some sort of concentration because everything's happening at the same time. So many things happening during the day.
Yeah.
And you kind of lose that, practice. You have to kind of save some hours, that I have to read or, to reflect. Because otherwise, it's just, what I do since I became a museum director.
Yeah.
I compensate. Well, it's not that it's difficult. What I find is that it's overwhelming in terms of focus and attention. You cannot really develop the time you wanted because there's so many things happening one after the other. And so it's hard work, but it's not difficult. It doesn't challenge you from an intellectual perspective. So you know what I do? I'm learning languages, very difficult languages like Chinese. And then I will learn Hindu studies. That's my next in September.
Okay.
And then Old Greek. So that's how I keep, some kind of difficult things happening. Because, everything. It's not that it's repetitive, but it's kind of... Anyway, it's not about me. Going back to you.
But you're absolutely right. You captured exactly my complaint to my academic colleagues, which is that it can be intellectually dehydrating at times. In a way, you feel sort of deprived of stimulus of the kind you're used to when you're sort of an academic. And I tried to learn Spanish early last year when the lockdown began. I got sort of as far as a month and a half, and then I stopped. I just couldn't continue.
But you should do that. Spanish for me would be like in 1 week I would know everything. That's easy.
Yeah, see, there you go. I don't speak Portuguese, so there's no way I'm learning Spanish in 1 week.
Portuguese would also be a good one.
Yes.
But anyway, so that's how you did. And how is the progress going in general of the Science Gallery at the moment?
Yeah. So I have to say, given the context, I mean, I've been in position for 3.5 years, of which more than 12 months have been in the pandemic. And, so that has taken its toll on everything and everyone. But that having said, I think we should feel reasonably satisfied, for the distance that we've covered. I have an incredible team. well, 90% of them just came straight from school, so to speak. So, you know,
Wonderful.
it's their first professional assignment. And so they
Wonderful.
bring energy, they bring sort of a
Creativity.
newness, freshness, and they
Yes.
bring, I think more than anything else, what I've found wonderful working with a young team is that they bring that kind of moral commitment one has only when one is young, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like that sense of no, we can't do this wrong. We have to be correct about this, right? And I think
the kind of youth determination, you know,
yes,
that yeah, we're going for it.
yes,
Yeah,
and
that's fantastic.
It's been really, really refreshing in that sense. So I shouldn't
Mhm.
sort of complain too much about feeling intellectually less stimulated, because they do
Yeah,
make things
yeah,
I don't
because the
know.
youth, that's another compensation thing, very
Yeah,
important. So there's
yeah,
books, but then there's the youth when
yeah,
you teach or whatever, or you're surrounded by.
precisely.
Yeah, that's very good.
So that's been that's been good. So the team is the best part of my job, without a doubt. The building, we've come up to the first floor. We were going to open it. There are 2 more floors to go and another wing to construct. We were going to open it later this year, but I think it will probably be now later next year.
Yeah,
Is when
those things take time, and there's always delays. I mean, it's normal.
exactly. And the pandemic, I mean, you know, there's nothing
Yeah.
anyone could.
Come on.
So,
And now in India, I mean, it's been so severe. So we
Yeah.
have to sort of understand the difficulties that everyone
Yes.
is going through. So
Yes.
yeah.
So I
But
think
anyway,
yeah. So that's
sorry.
the current status of the project. The construction is ongoing, slightly slowed down. The team is wonderful, and we started programming. In fact, you know, just a few months before the pandemic. So we were able to have 2 exhibitions. One small pop-up, which was curated by Madhushree, and a bigger one, Submerged, for 45 days, for which we had a curatorial team. And then we moved online, and this is and we've done 2 exhibitions now, one pop-up and one big one online as well.
Yes.
In that sense,
So
we are
that's Contagion, the big one.
Contagion is the 4th. Yeah.
The
Contagion is
4th.
the 4th exhibition.
So in a sense, and that's one of the good things about these, you know, new media.
Yeah.
In a sense, Science Gallery, although it didn't open yet, it already opened. Right?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
it already exists.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, one final question, Jahnavi, before I move to Madhu.
Yes, please.
When you went from academy to the science communication field and the informal learning science education through informal settings, what was your biggest fear? What was the kind of, okay, I don't know if I can do this. Like, what was the thing that caused you most concern? Not fear, whatever, concern, you know.
I mean, we all have doubts, right? Like, we all have doubts when you take up a new, it's a new profession, whether I like it or not.
Yeah, it is.
So I think 2 or 3 things. The first was, how was I going to make place for the human sciences? Yeah. Because unlike in the Latin and the European world, where Ciencia or Science or Wissenschaft includes the human and natural sciences, in the Anglo-American world,
it doesn't.
So that was my first major concern. My second major concern was that you know, we want to bring the human and the natural sciences, art, engineering together. Yeah. India doesn't have avenues for this coming together or this convening in the university, because our higher education is conducted in silos. Yeah. So, you know, we have the Indian
Institute. Not only in India, Jahnavi, not only in India.
I believe you, because we've both seen, but it's much stronger here. So, you know, you will be hard pressed to find a university campus where you can study everything from law to engineering to medicine.
Right. I understand.
It's, you know, Indian Institute of Technology, Indian Institute of Science, School of Planning and Architecture, National Institute of Design, National Center for Biological Sciences. So what
very compartmentalized.
Yeah. Very compartmentalized. So to deliver this mandate, it would be important to turn this space not only one which sort of does public engagement, but actually creates the ability to deliver that public engagement.
Sort of prepares, paves the way for different ways of seeing the world and then teaching, learning the world in a formal setting. That's amazing.
So what we've done is even within the network, the successful network model that we have decided to take it further. I mean, it's a fabulous model that has worked for 10 years. We are looking to the next 10 or maybe even 20. What we've pioneered in Bengaluru is a public laboratory complex, which looks back to institutions like the Royal Institution was in its very early days. So you can have Christmas lectures, you can have a Faraday. Faraday can do his discoveries in the same place where the public can come in and see and hear, right? So we've often talked about public engagement as taking science outside the lab. What we want to do here is to bring the public into the lab. And I think that was my solution, but it came out of my concern for how would I even deliver this mandate here, right? So that was the sort of second thing, and I think the third concern I have is also how how to, in a sense, move beyond science communication, because in science museums and to some extent even in science centers, or especially university museums and collections, we don't really do science communication per se. We don't take scientific research and take it to the public. We in fact create a world that is about science rather than science itself.
That's a very interesting point. And
I think that was, so how does one accomplish that? How does one operationalize it, if that's the word you're looking for? How does one put it into action, where you create tools that enable people to think about science? It doesn't mean they have to understand relativity, but they have to, in a way, be able to grasp.
Exactly.
When someone throws some information at them, what is the good question to ask? How is it relevant to my life? Why should this matter to me? Right? And I think it's that is the informal education, or that is the informal learning that we promote in these places, right? And
you are so right. You are so right. I mean, what I love about the Science Gallery is the idea of opening questions, of raising, when you establish these bridges between art and science, when they are well done, because there's a lot of trash in science and art, by the way, but it's not the case. When you do it, and we will see in the Contagion thing, the way that these connections are made. When you do it well, it's all about the questions and the paradoxes and the doubts that people raise, and like, what? This kind of weird perception of things that makes you think. It's not about teaching, because that's the problem with most of museums in general. They think, they consider themselves, there's this power of education that has been rampant in the last 40, 30 years in museums, that is all about education. Education is a lot about careers too, and progressing the professionals. But you come into this kind of with the education, so it's all about absolute truths, the content and how to transmit content and so on. And so, and I think that university museums really have a role to play in the, absolutely in the way of science galleries, which are also framed by the higher education context. So much more avant-garde, much more in the forefront of knowledge, much more, raising the questions that we don't know the answers, And so I think that's what I love about Science Gallery, which does it through science and art. So really, really fantastic. Okay, now, Madhu, sorry, you've been here so much, but the conversation has been so good, right? So Madhu, and you, first of all, how did you come to know Jahnavi and the Science Gallery? And what motivated you to join this, adventure, because that's what it is? And what do you feel more rewarded about? What do you really like when you get up, in the morning and say, I love my job? Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you, Martha. It was great hearing your conversation as well. I think I joined Science Gallery as an intern when I think maybe 6 months, I think, after Jahnavi had just begun. Uh, I was still in design school at that point of time. So I read an article in the newspaper about Jahnavi and Science Gallery and that she was coming back to set that up. And I was in an interesting space because I had completed a master's in neuroscience, and rather than going on to do my PhD in neuroscience, as many of my peers sort of did, I was sort of I had taken a gap year where I was working with a lot of scientific institutions in India to just do illustrations because I was interested in art and design, and I wanted
investigating, what
yes,
shall I
yes.
do next, and so on. That's very good.
So I was doing that, and I found that people didn't take me seriously as a designer if I wasn't formally trained in design.
I
So
see.
I went on to do a second master's at the National Institute of Design, which is, like Jahnavi said, again, an institution that specializes in design.
Exactly. The silos. The silos.
Institution of science, I went to an institution of design. But I specifically moved to Bangalore because it's sort of the space in India where a lot of scientific research still happens, and I didn't want to sort of cut that tie of leaving research behind. And I kind of just went on a whim, and I wrote an email to Jahnavi saying that I think it's very cool. There are few places where I see myself as someone who wants to work both in design and science, being able to work. So yeah, and I think the first project I worked with Jahnavi was an oral history archive, which we are still, I think, working on.
We still have to launch it.
But it's a really cool project which looks at capturing, the stories of India's India's first group of scientists, engineers, lab technicians, and their, their experiences of science in action. So that's what we were started working on, and then I kind of just got sucked into Science Gallery. And but I think it was. I think what I love about the project is that even though I'm not in a lab anymore, or that I don't do science in that way that people think it is to do science, right? Like to be in a lab. I still get to engage so much with research of all sort of backgrounds, right? Like the first exhibition on the periodic table was like chemists, physicists,
You're doing all the good things and not the bad things like pressure, peer pressure to publish, and women, you're a woman, so you probably would suffer a little bit of discrimination, if not a lot. So you're having all the good experience about research without all the bad things. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's very cool, and I think I get to think of a lot of interesting ways to get other people excited about it as well, and other people thinking about it. So I think that is something that I find very rewarding, that there's always something new to do, and there isn't this sort of creative boundary that this is the way to do it, because like Jahnavi said, it's a new profession, and we're sort of finding ways to actually do things. So it's not that there's a set path that we have to walk on. So I think that's a very that definitely makes me feel very excited about the things that we do. So yeah, I think that's
so. And during the your normal day, how is it? How do you interact with how many people when you're so?
So we have a smallish team of about 10 people, right, Jahnavi, who are like
includes everyone, accountants, construction
fantastic people. I love it. Small team, highly focused, very good.
Yeah, and I think we have our office on the NCBS campus. So when we were meeting physically, we would be there. But I think now, because we're all online, we've been mostly meeting online, and yeah, that's how the interactions go. But it's always fun because there's something new happening every day.
Of course. I'm thinking of moving to Bangalore. Yeah, absolutely.
Come over.
Just from hearing you talk, the excitement, the thing of starting something new, That's
Yes.
amazing. And this connection with research, very interesting indeed. So I would say now, because it's been like, I don't know, 1 hour, we already exhausted the time even before we started talking about contagion, but we will definitely, and it's now.
Yeah.
So I want to know everything about contagion, how the idea appeared, what can people expect, where can people find it, what was the objectives in this framework that I see, you know, the human side and connecting the past and the present and eventually the future and documental sources with objects. So I know it's all mixed, art and science, but who can, one of you, can you give us a guided tour about perhaps maybe the concept first? Is that okay? Let's
Yeah.
have a broader idea about the concept. What is proposed?
Sure. So quickly, Marta, we had 3 ideas on the table in April. Well, no, not even April. I think February, March 2020, and contagion was one of them. And once the WHO declared, the pandemic, or characterized the SARS outbreak, COVID outbreak as a contagion or a pandemic, we decided we were going to go ahead with the idea because it would be probably the most relevant exhibition we would do. And we are more convinced of it now than even, in the last year, because once the second wave hit India, we realized that this is in many ways the most pertinent time to be holding this exhibition and the most terrifying time as well. The fundamental idea remains true to the goals we have set for ourselves, which is to create through our presentations the ability to ask good questions for our audiences. And the way we do it is by opening various doors to understanding the phenomenon of transmission, and then what is transmission, right? So we did not want to remain restricted to disease alone, because if it is the transmission that we want to understand, if it's the process that we want to understand, then let's see what else transmits. And so we've looked at ideas, behaviors, emotions, as well as disease. It is also to provide some kind of respite from the relentlessness of the suffering around us, I think, at this moment, that we created these islands of understanding other transmissions to give, again, the mental tools or the intellectual tools to understand what happens when diseases spread. This is the same approach we took when we did our exhibition on water. One of the first decisions we took was that we will think of water as not only a resource. We will think of water as beyond a resource. And so similarly for contagion, the starting point was, this is not only about disease, but also about other things. And therefore, let's try to break open the phenomenon. What we do is we rarely narrativize, or at least, that's the strategy we followed in Bengaluru. What we do is we create, and this is the analogy or the metaphor we've been going with for some time. We might change it when we go forward, is that we open doors. We open as many doors as possible for people to walk in. So at the first level, it's what inspires you or what stimulates you. Is it games? Is it films? Is it something to listen to? Is it something to watch? And so then we assemble, films, open source games, podcasts, other such things also around it, right? So that's one way, that would be one way of opening doors. The second is to open the doors of research. And for that, what we've done is we have organized a public lecture series, a film series, and masterclasses and workshops. Now, these cut across disciplines and become, again, entry points. So if you're comfortable with epidemiology, then come listen to that. And then next to it, find something else. Find a historian, find a sociologist, find a filmmaker, find a curator, find an art historian. And so that's the strategy we've employed across the various things we've made. So I would say these are various doors that open to understanding the self-same thing, which is transmission or which is contagion. So I'll let Madhu take over from here. one last thing before. So the exhibition's been co-curated by myself and with Daniel Olson from the Wellcome Galleries. But I think what I would like our colleagues to understand is that the programming is equally important to us, because those are the doors that bring in everybody to the idea. So at the center of it is an idea, and the objects support us, the lectures support us, etc. And so in that sense, the one face missing here is Madhu's, because she, as program manager, works very closely with this 5-member team in order to put together the program. And we all sort of we all pool in our thoughts, and we all have an equal say, and we all bring in our networks, we all bring in our learning to the table in order to take this forward. So Madhu, yes, please, our favorite red page.
Yeah, all right.
And then I won't say what, because I'm sure you'll have your favorite exhibits.
Yes. So it's a real pleasure to welcome you, Marta, to Contagion, and to take you around a bit through the exhibition. Please feel free to stop us anywhere, ask us questions, because it'll be great to get your insights as well into the exhibition. Before we dive into the exhibits, like Jahnavi mentioned, I'd like to also show some of the other resources that we have as a part of the exhibition site for those who want to open a different door into understanding Contagion. The social rooms is one particular space. So especially because our target audience is young adults, right? We want to find different ways to engage them, to pique their curiosity. And some people are just motivated differently, right? You might enjoy playing games, you might enjoy listening to podcasts, or you just might enjoy a good book. So there is something for everyone here. For instance, our arcade has a collection of open source games. So you can come here, you can play a game, whether it's investigating an outbreak or understanding how information goes viral. You can come in, and all these games are completely open source. You can come in, play them at any time. And if you're excited, you might also want to check out an exhibit or a talk that's related to, say, misinformation, right? That's happening. So there are different ways to enter the exhibition from the social rooms. The reading room, for instance, has complete books available here. So everything from classic fiction, non-fiction, academic essays, graphic novels, you can read them here. You can also find a list of recommended readings. So if it's not enough what we have, there's also a recommended reading list and a separate section which has books by all the speakers in our lecture series. So as Jahnavi mentioned, we have 22 different experts from every possible field you could think of talking about Contagion, and their books are over here for us to come and see. So if you listen to the lecture, you liked it, you want to go read the book, you just come into the reading room, find the link, and you can get into that as well. So there are different ways of engaging with the exhibition. Sorry, my Chrome froze.
Fantastic. It's okay. Don't worry.
Sorry, I don't know, for some reason. They're back. Yes.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Is it okay? Okay.
That page is quite heavy with the amount of media, so sometimes it does tend to slow down, but
it's amazing,
apologies
Madhu.
for that.
It's amazing. I remind our viewers that we will put the links to Contagion and to the Science Center, the Science Gallery below in the video. Go on, Madhu, please.
So the activity handbook is something we started with our previous exhibition, Phytopia, and this is specially made keeping in mind the lockdown. So typically a science gallery exhibition is very hands-on, it's very messy, it's very experimental. You come into the gallery and you do things. So since we can't do that online in the same way, we've made a activity handbook. This has 10 experiments and activities ranging from theater and drama to microbiology, understanding viral conspiracies and everything and more. And the beauty is that you can do all these at home with minimal equipment or complicated things to buy. So anyone can download them, and you get to, do your own research.
Grab a partner. For example, I'm reading, grab a partner, that's the kind of thing.
That's what one does with partners, one grabs them.
Yeah, grab.
So you
Very
can
good.
actually make your own observations and try to understand
Exactly.
things, even inside the safety of your home, like during a pandemic. So the activity handbook is really perfect for that. Also, again, because we want this exhibition to be participatory, we want people to contribute to it. We had two programs in the run-up. One were called photography prompts, where we gave prompts to young people, like behind the mask, and asked them to share with us their creative responses to this. And this was
Wow.
done. This was done.
I had not seen this one. It's amazing. I had not seen this this resource. It's amazing.
So every time you come back to the exhibition, you can see something new.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, and we also keep sort of renewing.
Refreshing, right?
Yeah.
So that's smart. That's smart.
So
Go on, Madhu.
So what was really cool about this was we did this in collaboration with the Chennai Photo Biennale, so which is a group of extremely talented artists and photographers, and the young people submitted their photographs, and then they also had a mentorship session with senior photographers from there who gave them feedback on their work and helped them improve on it. And the final selected photographs are actually exhibited here. So, and what is very interesting is these are, as one of my colleagues like to say, this is a sort of documentation both of the pandemic life, of people's experience during it, right? And because it's young people, we have everything from photographs, which are highly artistic and expressive, but also GIFs and memes and things which would be slightly atypical, but still have a very interesting home here in Through Your Eyes.
Absolutely, absolutely, amazing.
So this is a beautiful sort of space to explore, and in your words is a similar section, but instead of photographic responses or visual responses, these were written responses. So it's prose, poetry, all in response to like a creative prompt, right? Which again explores transmission beyond the idea of just disease. So this whole exercise, I think, was an important way to give people a chance to share their, or give young people a chance to share their thoughts, their, the way they're thinking about contagion. And that really rounds out the exhibition, I think. Co-Vids is something I don't want to forget. So these...
Madhu came up with the title.
So
he's really good at this.
So they're like, so they're very short, 3-minute videos, 3 to 6 minute videos at the most. And they have everyone from like Heidi Larson from the Vaccine Confidence Project, talking, not giving you a lot of information, because, with everyone being online, there's already so much information.
No.
But I think what was really cool is that Daniel and Jahnavi came up with this idea that 3 questions. That's what's important, right? So what would these senior scholars say is the top 3 questions on their mind, right? And that becomes a very interesting starting point for people to think about the pandemic around us.
Yeah, but because the questions will be different, right?
Exactly.
Correct. Depending on their discipline, depending on whether they're in the field, whether they're in the hospital, whether they're at the desk. And so
that's very interesting. Very interesting.
And what is really cool is at the end of each video, we also have these resources, right? So you've heard Heidi Larson talk about her 3 questions around vaccines. And now you're like, oh, but I need to know more about this, right? Like 3 questions wasn't enough. And then you can actually come to the end and you can find things to read. Fantastic. And if you're not a reader, something to listen to or a video to watch. And that might just get you thinking a little better.
I love this idea of splitting the senses, of splitting, if you are more, because it's already known that some people love to read, others not. They prefer to listen to others, and others are more, observational. So I love this, and I have not seen it so well done as here. It's amazing. It's really, really good. Really good.
Thank you. Thank you. We were also, one of the reasons for doing that also was, during the lockdown. So we've always done this on site, but physically, it was spread out, right?
Exactly.
When you do it online, think of it like, someone like Marta, you're in my age, right? Like, who has to probably worry about, I don't have to, but, probably worry about making sure there's breakfast ready, or making sure, a young person is sitting at the computer and learning, etc.
Right.
You're likely to turn on a podcast and listen. You don't have the time to sit and watch a video, or you don't have the time to pick up a book, right?
Exactly.
So on the other hand, there are young who are probably living in homes where they don't have their own room, so their headphones is their world. So what will they do? They will listen.
Exactly.
So,
that's very important to cater. Absolutely. Also, when you are in a physical exhibition, you can even have this, but it's sort of so dispersed, it's kind of diluted. Here,
correct.
It forces you to organize the structure, the information in a way that it's so much better to direct the audiences to where where the expectations are. And so, it creates its own problems, which we can later talk about, which is the access, who has access to internet and so on. But let's go on. Sorry, Madhu, for the interruption, but it's
no.
It raises all these issues.
Yeah, and like Jahnavi mentioned, we have a film series, and we have everything from stop motion to short films to feature-length films, documentary films, and we make sure that there is a conversation. So you can watch the film anytime during the 45 days of the exhibition. It's available to be watched freely online, and you can then join in for a discussion with the filmmaker and an academic. So I think one of our best, events this time was a discussion between the filmmaker Arthur Pratt, who's a Sierra Leonean filmmaker who made the film Survivors about the Ebola outbreak. And we were privileged to be able to have David Heyman, a professor from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, who was actually a part of the first team that went to investigate the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So, two very interesting perspectives, two strong experiences of the same outbreak, but from two different points of view. And to have them in that conversation was really fascinating to be able to.
Wow, I didn't see that. I saw, but I didn't hear. So how was it? Is it a kind of free conversation among them, or is it moderated? How is it?
Yes. It's a free conversation with all the accompanying problems of this age, because Arthur had a power cut at his home, so he went to a cafe and he took the discussion on his phone. So there are moments where he loses us, and there are moments where but that's what it is. And
that's what it is. That's what it is, exactly. It makes us human too, huh?
Absolutely.
This is part,
So,
Madhu?
Yes. And so other than the film discussions we have several other programs. I think we have almost 60 programs happening throughout the 45 days. So we have lectures with tutorials, workshops, masterclasses, live events. And what is really good is that if you've missed it, it's recorded and it's available. Every talk and event has its own page. So, if you've missed it, you can still go in, watch it. We also tried something this time for the first time, where we have a sketchnoting fellow, and she actually attends every talk, and she creates this visual documentation of the talk. So, if you want a quick 5-minute,
like in court, when you go to court, there's a guy who makes the drawings of the the bad guys and so on.
Yes.
And so here you have kind of an illustrator. It's an illustrator or designer.
Yes.
But it's an amazing idea. Very, very fantastic.
This is what I mean by young people.
Yeah. I'm going to copy this idea. Yeah, definitely.
So you can get a 5-minute version of it, and you feel excited. You can go listen to the talk, and of course, like you can see here, we have about the talk, about the speaker, and the take it further section, like Jahnavi said. So every talk every exhibit, every workshop, every event has its own set of resources. And there are about more than 500 resources like this throughout the exhibition website. So you can spend 5 months going
Right.
through
It's,
it.
yeah,
And
it's fantastic. That's why one thing I don't understand, why does it have, okay, it's an online exhibition, which definitely breaks ground into the, you know, online exhibitions territory. So why does it have to end? Because you say like date, I don't know, April to, I don't know, June, I think.
yes.
So
yes.
why? This is an incredible, it shouldn't, what does it mean to end, first of all?
So two things. So what comes to an end? That is the $1 million question. Two things that we will well, two things come to an end when an exhibition comes to an online exhibition comes to an end. One is the artworks, which is
Okay.
what we are now moving into. The exhibits themselves,
Yeah.
they are the intellectual property of the artist, scholar, expert,
Right,
person.
right.
So they go back to them.
Yeah.
Right. So the interactive part, and we will explore some of these now, that returns to the artist. So we have a certain period of time when we have borrowed it for, and that goes back. The second is the intensity of the programming. So now for 45 days, as Madhu mentioned, we have about 60 programs. We will not be able to move on to another exhibition if we continue with that intensity of programming for an exhibition that has been archived. Yeah. So what stays? What stays is all of the resources that have been put together, all of the recordings. So if you look at this page, basically there will be a change in the first, which is the exhibition. There will be documentation of every exhibit. Yeah. There'll be the resources, but the exhibit itself will be altered in the sense it won't be a live exhibit anymore. Right. And the program's intensity will go down. Yeah. Right. And the mediator-led sessions won't be there. So the first three is what changes. Films as well. They're available for 45 days. They won't no longer will be available. But the discussion between the filmmaker and the scholar will be available. Stays. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So in a way, it becomes static because you will not be adding up. You have to give back what is not yours, so to speak. Yes. Yes. But it stays as a resource and an incredible resource nonetheless, you know. I think so. Yeah. So we do kind of add. So like, for example, when we find new resources that speak to what we have there, even for Phytopia or Submerge, our previous exhibitions, we do go and add it there. Right. So the resources remain. So for example, if you want to lead if you want to take the resources to a module in a classroom, I mean, like for Contagion, for example, you will have 23 lectures. Yeah. You will have 5 film discussions. You will have 15 Co-Vids. And the 500 links. Yeah, and so the teacher can decide how to, join that and present it in class. That's fantastic. You can pretty much create a learning module without having to add a single thing. I understand. Right? I mean, that's 23 lectures straight away. Yeah. And then all of the resources. So that's what changes. That having said, we should share with you now that we are almost in the last stages of discussions with artists and also the filmmakers. We are extending, because of the relevance of the topic, we are extending Contagion's closing date to the 31st of December. Very good. But we will not program with the same intensity. We will probably program twice a month. Could you extend the copyright, the possibility of reproducing the videos and the, right? Is that, well, you extend the period of the art. Yes, exactly. Art stays with you. Okay. Exactly. Okay. So this section, interactive section, was the section where I don't know, by chance, that's where I entered. And I stayed here for hours, really. So that was the part I love. There's one, my favorite is the cluster of 17 cases. Yes, I can't believe that. It's amazing in the sensitivity, in the beauty, in the simplicity. I love it. This is my favorite. I don't know. I'm not sure I saw them all, but this was my favorite. Yeah, definitely. So we each have ones we like, or let me put it this way: we feel more affinity to some more than others, but I think they're all sort of very, very interesting in different ways. Yes. But this one, yes, Madhu, do you want to say a little bit more about the cluster of 17 cases?
Yes, absolutely. So I think we were very lucky to be able to invite Blast Theory to be a part of it. And, Danielle Olson, the co-curator for this exhibition, I think played a important role since they've previously worked with the Wellcome. Blast Theory, this work actually comes from the first ever artistic residency at the WHO. So Blast Theory was embedded within the shock room of the WHO in 2018, where they were looking at understanding how epidemiologists, public health experts come together to call outbreaks. And during that time, they actually turned their lens backwards and looked at the 2003 SARS outbreak. So what I enjoy, especially about our exhibit pages, is we have this section called process, and that's something we've done new this time, where you can actually see behind the scenes bit of how the exhibits were made. And as a part of the original residency, Blast Theory built a scale model, which you can see here, of the Metropole, the 9th floor of the Metropole Hotel in Hong Kong, where the outbreak of SARS happened, when a doctor from mainland China came to Hong Kong, and he transmitted the disease to several other guests who were on the same floor as him. What Blast Theory has done for Contagion is create a digital version of this experience, which is shot inside the scale model that they created of the hotel. And when you go into the exhibit itself, as I'm sure you did, and you play through it, it's created as a game where people can step into the shoes of the guests who stayed at the hotel that night. And what they do is combine both the investigative aspect of how epidemiologists try to understand how between guests who never physically met, how did this disease get transmitted, to also the sort of eerie lived experience of those people, because they were unsuspecting. They had no idea what was going to happen, and that even the most banal action of touching a lift button or walking through a corridor could lead you to pick up this disease. And several of them carried it on to Canada, to the Philippines, and
sure. It's so well done. It gives such a good, because sometimes you see all those models, mathematical, whatever, chaos and so on, but this gives such a good, and it's so well done, so such simplicity and good taste. For example, even the filters of the color of it's amazing. It's just amazing.
And I think what's very engaging is also that you don't do it once, or there isn't a fixed route, right? You can do one room, you can come back, you can try another room. So a visitor can sort of mold their own experience, which makes it all the more interesting, I think. It keeps it fresh, right? That you can actually spend a lot of time interacting with it.
And from the point of view of science communication, well, I'm not so into the state of the art, but I think that gaming and the idea of exploring games is very much now being used by, well, not so recent. It's been for a while, but it's very important. It's becoming very salient, the idea of exploring games and especially digital games, right? So
I think it allows for individual participation in a way that, like Madhu said, it shapes you can shape your own participation in it, right? You can choose which room you enter, and that gives you a more, in a way, a closer experience of it. And it doesn't depend on what someone else is telling you or what someone else wants you to do. You choose, and then in a way what you do, you understand much better, right?
That's true, but it's an illusion of choice, right? Because they're choosing what the artist.
Absolutely. Every game is absolutely.
It's done. It's a scenario. It's like, it's a
absolutely. I mean, in interest of as their artistic choice, they actually don't have all 17 cases. They only have a few of cases. So I think what's interesting is also for people to be, for their curiosity to be sort of like, there are only 4 rooms, but it's called a cluster of 17 cases. Maybe I need to go and see what happened to the rest of the people.
Intriguing, right?
So sometimes the unknowns are good, provocateurs,
Absolutely,
right? And
absolutely, they are.
they can take people forward. I think that would be a really cool thing. Is there any other one that you particularly like that you'd like me to maybe talk about, or I could show
No,
you?
I think Madhu, we the time you
Okay.
didn't notice, and I didn't notice, but the time flew, and we need to, bring this conversation to a close, but at the same time, leave the choice of visitors to, go wherever. So let's not disclose more, and invite people to explore by themselves. So I would like to ask you both a final, well, it's not final question, but I wanted to know, what are your concerns now and what are you working on now? Is there something that you can anticipate, knowing that, sometimes you have to be secret, a little secret because of the surprise thing? But is there something you can tell us about what is that you are working on in Science Gallery at this point? Is that possible?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Madhu will say more to it as well. So as I said, we will extend.
Apart from the construction, okay? We
yes,
know
no,
that.
I'm not talking about
That's
that.
done. That's done. Okay.
No, I really don't want to talk about it. So Contagion will continue until December 31 with sort of reduced programming after June 14 or June 13. Yeah. Once or twice a month is basically what we have planned for, so that the resources are in a way, because they're so relevant to this moment, it would be useful to keep it alive. So that's one. Just a week before Contagion opened, we closed our open call for the next exhibition, and that's called Psyche. And we hope to Psyche, yes.
You have wonderful names. You have wonderful names. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Thank you. I still remember the minute we decided it. We were sitting in the back seat of the office car, Madhu and I, and we had reached where I was supposed to get off. And as usual, we were discussing, okay, this, and then that's also possible, and that's also possible. And I was like, yeah, this, and we should call it this. And Madhu just looks at me and says, yes, that's the one we are doing, right? And so you can tell.
Yeah, because sometimes you have an intuition that that's the thing, right?
Yeah, it. Absolutely. So
what is it about?
It's an exploration of the human mind in itself and in society, right? Like, so what is it? Right. So we want to explore that. So of course, neuroscience to psychiatry are, well, the effort to understand what it is, right? Because it's an intangible. It's not known.
Exactly.
It's not in a sense expressed.
Yeah, and dissect. I think it's very confusing for people. Dissect these terms like brain, mind, consciousness. It's all very confusing for people. What's the physicality, the intangibility, and even that, I mean, in terms of concepts, it's confusing. Absolutely. So it's very good that you entangle that. It's good.
Yes,
it's going to be good.
Yes. I think that's
and more. Yeah,
and more. Absolutely. I think that's the goal. And, every time we do an exhibition, we ask ourselves, okay, what is it that we've done and how can we articulate this better? Because many decisions are taken intuitively, many are taken consciously. I think the broad framework we are very aware of and articulated, but the details, kind of come through. And I think one of the things we like doing is to take as our starting point objects of inquiry across disciplines. So I think that would be sort of, the starting point. So Psyche is one thing we're working on, and for later next year, we want to do something that brings together ecology, geology. The point of departure is the idea of the Anthropocene, but I don't think we'll call it that. But that's the
frame. Okay.
Yeah.
You're doing something that I struggle, here in Lisbon, and I struggle when I see, and I think, again, university museums have the atmosphere to do more of these kind of experimental things and more addressing the concerns of society today. It's not that we don't have to communicate science. What you have is to look for the science and the research in order to to have a dialogue with people about
Absolutely.
what they are concerned about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's what you need. You don't have to do anything. I mean, who cares the role of the School of Copenhagen in early quantum mechanics? I mean, come on. We don't care. And if you care, you'll find your way through the information and through the knowledge.
Yes.
We are in a different business, the business of addressing the concerns of people. That's what we should do, and the university museums even more, because they have an infinite pool of people around them.
Correct.
That can, raise all the issues. And so I think you're doing a fantastic job, really. And I cannot wait. Andrea Bandelli will be one of my next interviewees. I don't know.
Wonderful.
He doesn't know, obviously, but but he will. And so, yeah, well, I hope that everyone has a look, goes to the Science Gallery page in Bangaluru, look at the fantastic work they're doing, explore for a tremendous amount of time and with calm, tranquility, the exhibition Contagion, and subscribe to whatever they are in social networks. I'm sure they're everywhere because they're very active, and do that. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, UMAC, because there will be more zoom into new projects. Every time we hear of a fantastic, innovative, avant-garde project, whether it's an exhibition or a museum, anything, we will let you know. So this is our job, to transmit, give voice to this fantastic team that are working with such incredible ideas out of India. So thank you so much for your attention, and thank you, Jahnavi and Madhu, for your time, and continue with the great job that you're having. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marta.
Thank you, Marta.